Thank you, Eva. Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on our Audience Atlas Aotearoa 2025 research. It's lovely to have you with us today, with attendees joining from across the motu, from the arts and Ngā Toi Māori sector, local authorities and tertiary institutions. Before we start, I'll open the webinar with a karakia. Mino tātou. Aio ki te rangi, aio ki te whenua, aio ki ngā mea katoa, tihei mauri ora. Ko Aroharangi tōku ingoa. I'm co-manager Māori Policy and Performance for Creative New Zealand Toi Aotearoa, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Andrew McIntyre, director and co-founder of Maurice Hargreaves McIntyre. Andrew developed the methodologies that underpin the Audience Atlas research and make it such a useful tool for ringatoi, arts organisations and groups to connect with audiences. Before I hand over to Andrew, I'll run through a few housekeeping details so you know what to expect. This session will run for 90 minutes. The first 60 minutes is the main presentation from Andrew. After the presentation, we'll have about 25 minutes to respond to any partai you may have. You can put your questions in the Q&A function at any time during the webinar. You can see the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you use New Zealand Sign Language, you'll see our interpreters, Rangi and Laura, on the screen throughout this session. If you are deaf or turi Māori and you'd like to ask a question, please either type into the Q&A function or use the raise hand function, and we can turn on your camera so our NZSL interpreters can share your question with us and give you the response. This webinar is being recorded. We'll make the recording available after the session so you can revisit the content or share it with colleagues who couldn't attend today. Audience Atlas is a tool that helps us understand audience behaviours, motivations and barriers to engagement. It provides insights that can inform your planning, marketing and programming decisions. Today, we'll explore what the 2025 report tells us about audiences in Aotearoa and how these insights can help strengthen connections between the arts, Ngā Toi Māori and our communities. The 2025 report is the 5th edition of Audience Atlas Aotearoa, the first report provided in 2011. So we have over a decade worth of robust data to track trends and changes over time. We're fortunate to have Andrew to talk with us today. Andrew brings significant experience in audience research and strategy. He's worked with arts and cultural organisations around the world to help them build deeper and more meaningful relationships with their audiences and communities. I'll now hand over to Andrew to begin the presentation. Ngā mihi nui, thank you for being here. Kei a koe, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Roha. I'm really delighted to be here. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you all today. I've done a few of these now. Some of you may have seen some previous presentations I've done. And what brings me a lot of joy is knowing that we got such a track record here. There's the first of our Audience Atlas reports, the one with the not so good cover, 5 editions ago, back in 2011. So that's 15 years ago. And Creative New Zealand really need to be congratulated because their consistent investment in this kind of data, metronomically, even through COVID, has really given Creative New Zealand an advantage on pretty much everywhere else. I think there's the state of Victoria in Australia is copying you, but a couple of editions behind. But this is almost a unique tracker, 5 editions of the same study, which really seeks to profile the engagement of New Zealand audiences. And it's almost as if we planned this. We have the data from just before COVID, and then obviously we have the data now as we emerge from that period. And it's so interesting to see what some of these trends are. It's really important to say, though, that this isn't a backwards looking study. Although we do have more than a decade's worth of data, we aren't looking backwards. We aren't going, oh, where were we and where are we now and what's changed. It is interesting to see some of those changes, and I will be sharing some of the changes since 2020 with you. But this is very much a forward-facing study. It's really looking at where we are now and what we might do next. It's not the rear view mirror. So it's very much trying to equip you with the insights that you can use straight away and start to apply both to your strategy and your programming, but also to understanding the audiences that you want to get in the next 5 years. Um, and so that clear picture of the cultural landscape is really what we're trying to get across in the next hour and a half, measuring and exploring not only the current audience, but as you'll see in a few slides' time, the lapsed audience, by whom we mean the people who were coming and have not been in a little while. They've not gone away. They're just not attending in the way that they were. And also the potential markets, the people who say, I've not tried that, but I would like to give it a go. So it's looking not just at what we hold, but it's also what we've had and what we might get. Doing that across 11 different art forms. Uh, in this morning's presentation, I can only give you a brief kind of brushstrokes of some of this stuff, but the report itself is available online, and it has a number of companion reports that look at Pacifica and Mari and various other community takes on the data, and you will find data of great value. It's all on the Creative New Zealand website. Um, and it's about turning that insight into action. So we want to support individual organizations to harness this insight to try and improve their own situation, but also we hope that collectively this works as sector development and helps the arts in New Zealand to grow sustainably. So let's jump right in and ask, what did we learn? Here's our little world map. Here's 94%. The adult population are in the market for arts and culture. It puts you up there and ahead of quite a few other places around the world. This is a slight drop from 2020, when it was 96%. We may be splitting hairs here. The audience here, 4.04 million New Zealanders have engaged with the arts in the past 12 months. That's up slightly from 3.94 million last time round. But actually, what we find is that growth in volume is actually the result of population growth rather than incidence of attending the arts. So, in fact, it's slightly lower attendance from a slightly bigger population. And this is we'll start with the bad news and then we'll get on to the good stuff. People are anxious. More people expect to reduce their arts engagement and spend over the coming 12 months than to increase it. So 21% of people told us that they're likely to attend less often in the next 12 months than they have previously, and only 15% say that they are planning to attend more often. And I think this is kind of interesting because it's obviously a volatile situation, but those people who anticipate attending less aren't necessarily haven't already made those decisions. I am definitely attending less, and they're not keeping count. It's just that that's how they're feeling at the moment. This is psychology. So it's up to us to make them to give them reasons to attend. They're anticipating that it'll probably be less, but if we give them compelling reasons to do it, then it may turn out not to be less. or if even if it is less, well, you need to make sure that the the invitations that you're giving them are the ones that they do choose. They're not saying 21% of people are not saying I'm not going to go at all. They're just saying I might go to fewer things. So they're going, if they are going to fewer things, they're going to be choosing them in a more careful and a more discerning way. And so their decision on how on what to attend and what not to is going to be more critical and therefore more crucial. And so the way in which we talk to people, the way in which we target them, the way in which we persuade them becomes more and more important if you don't want to see your attendance numbers drop. Um, there's an annual arts spend of $3.3 billion, which is a lot, but it's actually a little bit less than it was previously. Adjusted for inflation, spending has declined slightly compared to 2020. I would say that it had declined more than this and is probably on its way back up, but it hasn't quite got to the 2020 levels. The link between income and art spending is really quite palpable. So we know that the reason for this slight drop is not a lack of interest, or it's not that they don't think that what's on offer is as good as it was. It's that people are beginning to feel economic pressures, and those economic pressures are starting to shape some of the leisure and cultural decisions that they're making. And it's not necessarily that they are lucky to not go. It's that the decision to attend is spending resources that are more precious to them, and maybe spending time that is more precious to them. And so attendance is becoming much more intentional, and it's big, and the decision process is becoming much more deliberate. And so if you've got a whole lot of people out there intentionally making very deliberate decisions, what you've got to ask yourself in the communication, the relationship you've got with them is how can you support that deliberation? How can you give them intentional reasons to visit? I suppose what I'm saying is we can no longer just rely on the fact that people are in a habit of coming. I think COVID has disrupted all of those habits. People are now remaking habits, and we need to support that habit remaking. And if we're coasting or we're just hoping that people will come because they've always come, then we may be disappointed. And that goes, interestingly, for some of the most frequent and loyal visitors are now being significantly more deliberate about the choices that they're making. Um, there's been a decline in what we'd call the current market across most art forms. The current market being those that have attended in the past 12 months, no more so than in something like live music, which is now down to 49%, was down from 67% 5 years ago. Um, and what that has done is grown the reservoir of previous live music attenders, what the people we call laps, the people who were going previously and have not been in a little while. That's now grown to over 1 million New Zealanders. So just over 1.09 million New Zealanders are in now in the lapsed market for live music. I'll show you the numbers for other art forms on a subsequent slide, but this is a trend. People are being more careful, people are being more intentional, people are being more deliberate, and in that deliberation, they're deciding not to attend some things that haven't quite got over the line for as a must see. And because of that, the number of people who haven't been to one of these art forms, including maybe your art form, over the past 12 months is ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. That doesn't mean those people are lost. It just means that they've moved from the active group, the people who've been within the past 12 months, into this slightly less active group, the lapsed group, the people who've been previously but not in the past 12 or 2 years, or in fact 3 years in some cases. So we've got a lot of people who are waiting and seeing. A lot of people are waiting to be persuaded. A lot of people are waiting to be reactivated. And it's down to us, both in terms of programming and in terms of communication and in terms of relationships, to try and make those people make more intentional, deliberate choices to come and see us. Um, and so if you look for the visual arts, slightly fewer, but not many, 905,000 are in the lapsed market for visual arts. And if you go to craft, it goes up to 800,000. I've got a slide with more of these on later. But this is a meta trend, which is people are just taking their foot off the gas of frequency. And it's not that they're not in the market, it's not that they're not interested, it's just that they haven't quite seen the thing that makes them think they must attend. Um, when we ask people why are they going, this is really quite interesting. Um, there is a big post-COVID meta trend, which is the rise of the social. Um, i- People seeking fun and quality time to spend with friends, family, loved ones. And the offer you're making is an enabler of those shared experiences. So it's come and spend quality time and have shared experiences and memorable moments at our venue doing our art form. Um, and that's huge and has been big for the last five. I mean, it was big anyway, but it's been really, really dominant for the last 5 years. People are really prizing that kind of intense shared experience. There's also some um, suggestion that this is uh, an antidote to digital, that people find even when they live together, families, even people with their kids, are finding that they can all be at home, but they're all in different rooms on different screens, and that the amount of social interaction that they're having with each other is limited because everyone's always on their phone. And so going out to a performing arts event or going to a museum or going to an art exhibition uh, or a music event is a way to spend time away from screens in company with each other and enjoying being together. And that's been a really big meta trend. And this is something we've seen in every country, that this kind of desire for socialization is becoming dominant. However, what's really interesting is when you push beyond this social driver, because you could do this in the pub, couldn't you? Or you could do this in the park. So what is it that makes people want to come to a cultural event to do this rather than literally just, go for a walk on the beach? And the answer is this. The answer is that 6 in 10 are also seeking what we call deep fulfillment. So that could be intellectual, but it's particularly likely to be emotional. They would like to be moved. They would like to find to feel a sense of belonging and identity, but also I think it can be spiritual, by which I'm very, very broad definition of spiritual, but it can mean stimulating your own creativity. It can mean complete escape. It can mean profound reflection. Um, and what we're finding here is that um, COVID has done this thing, which is reconnect people with, I'm going to use the word advisedly, but let's call it mindfulness. Time in nature, time just relaxing, time when they are breathing and feeling that they're not stressed and at work. They're looking for things that are actively de-stressing. They're looking for things that allow them to escape. They're looking for things that will allow them to be transformed, to feel something. And if you can do that alongside the social stuff, be with people who you care about and get some deep fulfillment, this kind of emotional, spiritual response to art and culture. You can get it from nature. You can get it from walking by the sea. You can get it from other places. And in COVID, particularly, people were getting that. But I think that they're realizing that plugging into really great culture allows you to almost guarantee to get that emotional and spiritual payload, if you like. So what we're finding is that those organizations that are successfully communicating um, that emotional and spiritual impact that their work can have are developing what we call loyalty. In this case, it could literally just be um, a habit of reattendance. But also, I think beyond just a habit of reattendance, they're being really valued by audiences as the place where they get this thing that they really want in their life. And so uh, um, this 6 in 10 seeking deep fulfillment is a significant increase in what we were seeing before COVID. And it's I think people were seeing the social driver on the previous slide as being almost in competition with this, and it really isn't. People are looking for the social thing as a prerequisite. Everyone wants that. And then most people want to go beyond that and have this deeper experience. And of course, we're able to deliver that. What's interesting is from testing out people's websites and people's emails and people's printed information about their program, most audiences cannot discern the emotional and spiritual impact from most of the arts marketing communications we're sending out. So usually we're telling them it's on, we're telling them what it's about, with maybe a few photos and so on, but we are failing in a lot of cases to fully convey the emotional and spiritual depth of what we're offering. And so people then see it as being just an option on their long list. And then they're, as I was saying before, intentionally and deliberately deciding not to come. And then they join the lapsed group. And so we know how powerfully emotional and spiritual our work can be, or the experiences we're offering are, but we're not always doing a great job at communicating that. And so the one thing I would tell you from this insight is you really need to double check that the messages that you're transmitting are being received by your target audiences as having this power. If they have this power, you will get a lot more people coming than if it doesn't. Um, so this is kind of where we're starting to see some issues. 1.6 million missed engagement opportunities. So 4 in 10 4 in 10 people in the market, which is nearly everyone in New Zealand, have told us that they can recall in the past 12 months wanting to attend an arts event, but were somehow prevented from doing so. So not just they didn't get around to it or whatever, it was that they chose something that looks great. I really want to attend that, but something prevented them from doing so. This is higher and it's going up. So in 2020, this was 36%. Said that it was too expensive. That was the number one thing, and I think we flagged that at the time. It's now 54%. So 54% of these people said that they saw something they wanted to attend, but that the ticket price, not just the ticket price, maybe it's the expense of the whole thing, has actually prevented them from attending. And so there's another example of people deliberately and intentionally saying, shall we go to that thing that we've seen? And then after thinking about it, thought, actually, let's not go. I think that's too expensive. Now, there's two versions of too expensive. There's the actually, I can't afford it, in the sense that I'd have to choose between buying this ticket and heating my house or putting food on the table. For most people, that won't be the case. That there will be a smaller number of people for whom that is a real economic choice. But for most people, what too expensive means is is I don't think it's worth it. That doesn't mean that they haven't spent the same or even more money buying a ticket for something else, or that they haven't spent that money in a restaurant or in a pub. It just means that they didn't think that their perception of what you're offering is actually worth the money that you're asking. And again, I would go back to, if I just go back a couple of slides, I go back to this, which is that if they understood the full emotional and spiritual payload that your activity might deliver to them, then I'm going to say that this 54% wouldn't be 54% because they would think, wow, we're getting all of that for just that money. That seems really good value. So this is not necessarily for some cases, it's a ticket pricing problem, but for many others, it's a ticket value problem. So they don't see value for money. It's not necessarily that they haven't got the number of dollars that you're asking, it's that they don't think that what you're offering is probably worth the number of dollars you're asking. And again, so this is about us communicating the value of what we do. For those who literally haven't got the dollars, you might also want to look at other solutions. We can see in a lot of other markets, the UK particularly, people are now going to all kinds of flexible pricing arrangements. There's always been kind of pay what you can and other kinds of things, but we're seeing now some structured versions of that. So we're seeing a lot of places that have got something called access pricing, which is can be paid what you want, but can sometimes be set as a lower price. And it's they're doing no questions asked. You don't have to prove that you've got some kind of concession validity. You can just say I can't afford it, so I'm claiming that price. They're finding that people are not abusing that. It's very small. Then they've got standard pricing, which says thank you for paying this. It helps us keep going. And then they've got something variously called, I've seen it called pay it forward pricing. I've also seen it called solidarity pricing, which is a bit more. And it says by choosing this, if you can afford it, please choose this. It helps us to offer the access pricing to those who can't afford it. And a lot of people are choosing that. And overall, the yield from those three prices is higher than the yield that they were getting from their normal ticket pricing. What's different about it is that to some extent, with your normal ticket pricing, there's always a significant percentage of people who are not that happy with the ticket price. Some of them are, but some of them think, oh, that I paid a bit more than I wanted to. What's interesting with this thing I've just described is that everyone's happy with the ticket price because if you got the access price, you're delighted. If you paid the standard price, you feel that you're doing your bit. And if you paid the pay it forward solidarity price, you feel really quite good about it. You feel that you've helped in some way. So it's interesting that you can play with the psychology of pricing in ways that make people feel that there is a price for them, but they can also feel good about the price that they're paying. Um, I'm happy to answer some questions about that later. So let's look at who's missing out. Who are the people who are choosing not to go? Well, they're disproportionately younger audiences. So older audiences are less price sensitive. But also it's about diversity. So Maori audiences, Pacific audiences, and disabled people's audiences are also far more likely to over-index in telling us that they would have gone but didn't. And it's not just, by the way, ticket pricing. There are other things as well. I think at the risk of spoiling my later slide, people saying that they didn't think that they would fit in. So it's about how we portray our organizations and whether we are showing people visual evidence of people like them in our venues enjoying what we're offering. People's perception of who might be there and whether they would fit in is quite interesting. I shall tell you one more thing, by the way, is that we're finding, generally speaking, now that 60 to 65% of visit decisions are influenced by audio or video messaging rather than written messaging. That includes written messaging on websites. So, um, so, and the reason for that is people can see and hear what the event will be like, and they can also see and hear what the audience will be like, and whether they feel that they would fit in with the audience. And that's much more important than we maybe think it is. So if you're not visualizing your event and you're not visualizing your audience and showing it to your prospective audience, then you're missing a huge trick here because that seems to be really, really high in the mix of people making these deliberate, intentional decisions. Um, so if you look at this slightly odd graph, the +9 and the +13 for Maori and Pacific peoples here are how much more than the average this is. So this is prevented from attending a specific event. Um, so Maori people are 9% more likely than the average to say that that happened to them. Pacific people, 13%. You'll see that for European and people identify as European and Asian, they're actually less likely than the average to say those things. Um, so if we move on to the things that keep us alive, so membership and fundraising and donations, um, there are 23% fewer current donors than 5 years ago. So that means that we've got a shrinking pool of people who are actually contributing donations to us. However, there are 1.2 million potential donors who say that they would consider it if we asked them. What's also interesting is lots of people say we haven't asked them, or if we have asked them, they've not clocked the fact that we've asked them, they've not seen the fact we've asked them. So we're not asking them personally enough or directly enough. So although the regular donors of the past are shrinking, these potential donors of the future are not being recruited at the rate we could potentially recruit them. And therefore, I suppose what I'm saying is we're leaving money on the table. There's a huge potential for you. Also, this idea that, you know, it's your core attenders, people who come all the time, season ticket holders, the core of the core. These are the people who are going to give money to us. It's not actually necessarily true. We've seen people who are first-time attenders and have just fallen in love with your venue or had an amazingly fantastic time, are in many cases equally likely to donate as someone who's been 10 times. So often I think we're sometimes waiting for people to become our core audience on our lists before we kind of start to proposition them. You could be propositioning people on their first visit, and particularly seeing as their first visit might be their only visit. Then I think maybe propositioning them as soon as you can might be a way to go. So there's this 1.22 million people, and you know they're not exactly secret. That's like a quarter of the population. So it's not like if you look out across your venue and you see a couple of hundred people, it's not like wondering which one of them is the one that might donate. It's a quarter of them. A quarter of them would think of donating. So I think you could be fairly broadcast in some of the ways of asking people. Um, it's also interesting, having said that it's Maori Pacific disabled younger audiences who are the ones that are missing out on some of our events because they're exactly the same people who are more likely to donate. So in the same way as I was saying that it isn't necessarily your older, longer established audiences that are that we should think of as becoming donors. Um, Pacific peoples are 14% more likely than the population at large to consider donating. Um, and for Maori, it's +6. And for under 35 audiences, it's +8. So young, more diverse audiences that are new to you maybe, are in the market to become your donors. And I think, that might change the way that you think about some of the programs and schemes that you run. Um, so this is good because for the last three editions of this, so that's over the last 10 years pretty much, we've been lamenting the decline of membership and volunteering, going down and down and down and down. For the first time, this has now turned a corner. It looks like we hit the bottom in 2020, and it's now starting to uptick slightly. So there are another 114,000 members of active members or subscribers or friends of cultural organizations than there were 5 years ago. We know that COVID really brought it home to people how valuable cultural organizations are when either people missed being able to visit them or started to worry about losing them. And so I think for many people that spurred them into action. And I think we were probably a bit better coming through COVID of asking people to do this because we needed them. But that level of urgency seems to have worked, and that's a significant uptick. It's a like a 20% growth or even more than not, I think, nearly a 30% growth in people who are members. So that's really good news. But I don't think we're anywhere near the top of that market. I think the potential for membership is huge. I just think that the kind of membership people want might not be the old-fashioned subscription kind of membership that we were offering. I think people are interested in all kinds of levels of membership, including free membership. If you wanted to create a free tier to get people in and then use that to try and get them to join them monetize later. But also, I think people are interested in things like subscription in terms of like paying monthly as opposed to big one-off annual membership payments because everyone pays for everything monthly, don't they? Spotify, Netflix, or whatever else. So I think that there are all kinds of flexible schemes here. I also think that really old-fashioned heavy membership schemes that are like your bronze, silver, gold with ever increasing numbers of benefits are really, really going out of fashion really, really fast. And people want admission and then they want to feel a sense of connection. After that, they're actually prepared to pay money on top of their membership for other kinds of perks and benefits, but they don't particularly seem to want them rolled in with their basic membership. And if you strip a lot of the complexity out of membership schemes, you might find that people will be much more willing to join. Tate Modern in London has just done a trial membership, which is like a 3-month membership for an introductory price, and they're selling them like hotcakes. So people are interested in getting into membership, but they don't want to buy in to all of the complexity. So I think if you make it simple and you make it affordable and you make it, give people a first rung on the ladder, I think membership could really boom now. I just think we need to think of it in a different way. Volunteering similarly. So another 109,000 volunteers, which is a huge increase on 263,000 last time. Again, the volunteering had been going down and now it's potentially going up. But again, increasing numbers of people wanting to volunteer. And we all often used to think about volunteers as again being retired or people with lots of time on their hands. And obviously, that's still a growing market, and there are increasing numbers of people in that market who are willing to be asked. But if you look at the two trends here, in the older volunteering market, people used to like, oh, I'll volunteer every Tuesday and Thursday. Well, a lot of older people now have caring responsibilities, either with family or with grandchildren, that kind of thing, or they travel more, or they are more flexible, or maybe themselves are still doing odd bits of work or other volunteering. And so people want more flexible ways to volunteer. That they maybe want to volunteer for projects, or they want to be able to sign up and maybe on a week-to-week basis. And so if you can provide flexible volunteering for older people, you'll get significant numbers of people wanting to do it. But the big rise in volunteering is with younger people who are keen to be part of things, to be connected. They're almost as willing to volunteer as they are to join, in the sense that they want to connect. And they've got all kinds of skills, including online skills, that they would like to put at your service. But we're just not necessarily thinking about asking them, or we haven't organized ourselves in a way that can unlock that potential. this is really interesting. In terms of top information sources, so social media is still king, but not as much king as it was. It's really started to decline. Um, People are really looking at things like personal recommendation is becoming more and more important. People are relying on things like email a lot more than they were. It's interesting. Um, but there is a huge age divide in this. So it's 15%, 51% last time. We're looking on social media as the information source. It's really dropping, and I think that's probably a verdict on the quality of social media. Social media has become corrupted with a lot of nonsense that you don't want to see. Some of the platforms are not particularly nice places to be, and there's a lot of content you don't want to see, a lot of content you find objectionable. And it's very crowded, and there's a lot of very poor quality information there. So people are not necessarily seeing that as a feed. They will still look at it and consult it, but it's not what it used to be. Um, it's interesting that 25% are still consulting online listings. That's really high, I think. Um, and legacy media down the bottom still has a footprint, but this is massively age profiled. So um, it's 36% looking at social media overall, but if you look at the 25 to 34-year-old age group, it's 46%. And it's even higher for some particular social media channels. If you look, for example, at Instagram, it's 76% for 16 to 24-year-olds. 58% of them look at TikTok. So these are stratospheric numbers. If I flip back to social media at 36%. So you can see that this is not 36% as an average, but it doesn't tell the whole story. I should also say, though, 16 to 24-year-olds, Facebook does really, really badly, like really badly. But for over 55s, nearly all of them are looking at Facebook. So Facebook is kind of aging out with the population. Things like Instagram and TikTok are aging out. I mean, you may have known this already, but the stats are quite stunning at the divide. So the number of over 55s on TikTok is tiny. The number of under 25s on Facebook is tiny. Overall, 36%. So I think zoning in on which audiences you want. I could give you this by culture segments as well. Zoning in on these audiences is really important. And the kinds of messaging, we talked a lot earlier about the kinds of deliberation and messaging that you're trying to support. Putting the right messages in the right channels aimed at the right audiences seems to be the key here. It's a bit like Cluedo, it's Professor Plum in the library with the lead pipe. The only mistakes you seem to be able to make here are putting the wrong message in the wrong platform aimed at the wrong audience. And the opposite is true. Um, so if you're kind of looking at how we can act on this stuff, and there's a whole load more. I'm literally pulling out a few things here. And if you're interested in Pacific people's audiences, there's an entire report to be downloaded on that on the website, and a lot of others. You can really glean a lot more data. But just to give you a kind of top line on this, um, I think that although there's a lot of work to be done attracting new audiences, there's still a huge amount of value in prioritizing culturally confident, high value market segments, many of whom have had their patterns of visitation wildly disrupted, are busy trying to remake them, but are remaking them. They're starting almost with a blank sheet and starting again. And so you need to kind of almost like force yourself onto their radar in order to win a share of that market again. You can't just assume that they'll come back. And culture segments, I think, is a really interesting lens for this. And New Zealand has the richest culture segments data anywhere in the world. Um, and this is data about why people attend, what they're seeking to, what motives they have, what needs they're seeking to fulfill through engaging with us. And if we can understand those things and speak directly to them, then we're much more likely to convey the emotional and spiritual payload. We're much more likely to make this a must see, a must visit decision in this deliberation and intentional choices that they're making. So, again, if you, I'm sure a lot of you know a lot about culture segments, but if you can't remember, if you don't know about it, or you can't remember which segment you were, or you just fancy having another go, this QR code with the fun dinosaur in the middle, or this little URL here. And if you haven't got time to do it now, maybe screenshot this or take a picture with your phone or do something. Or I'm sure you could probably do this on your phone while you're listening to me because you're all multitasking people. And it takes about no, 75 seconds or something to profile yourself on culture segments. So if you haven't already done it, have a go at this. It is fun. So if you either do it now while I'm speaking or do it offline, but it is worth having another look. Um, but these are the 8 segments, and they are mindsets as a way to think about them. Essence are the kind of core culture vulture audiences, knowledgeable, discerning, been to a lot of things before. Um, uh, Expression are your community-minded, communally-minded audiences, hardwired to support cultural organizations, but very egalitarian and democratic, and very, very much wanting the whole community involved. Stimulation are seeking really cool, new, novel, exciting, visually wow experiences. Big ideas that that they want things to explode. Affirmation are kind of self-improvers. They want to do more culture so they could become more cultured. Um, and these 4 on the top line are really the core audiences for most of your organizations, but the bottom line still has some value. Enrichment at the bottom are quite traditional. They track a little bit older, but you will find every age group and every every diverse community in every single one of these, but in different proportions. But enrichment track a little bit older. They're less interested in the contemporary. They like things that have stood the test of time. If you're going to do Shakespeare, do it traditionally. Don't mess with it. Um, Perspective are really fascinated by something, have a particular interest, and if you can connect with that, then they're yours. Release are time poor. They're just stressed and busy, and they're looking for release from that. They're looking for some some option. And so if they're only going to go to one thing, why should it be yours? And then entertainment are the odd ones out here because they put arts and culture in the same category as everything else. So all entertainment, all leisure, and so they could go bowling, or they could go to the to the cinema, or they could come to you. So so I think it's I think it's kind of interesting to understand your own footprint in this, and it's relatively easy to find that for your own audience, and we may have some of that data in the study already. Um, so as we said before, Essence are kind of cultural connoisseurs. They are inner directed. They don't need you to tell them why they would like it. They're not looking for recommendations. They're not looking to wonder what everyone else is looking at. They're making their own minds up. They want to get closer to the art. They want to get closer to the source. So, I said before about audio and video. They want, I don't know, they want to see what's going on in the rehearsal room. They want to meet the actor, the writer, the choreographer, the director, the curator, the artist. They want to get as close as they can to the source of the art. And we can bring that to people, but we just don't do it enough. Um, the expression are literally the social experience, because if you offered them an exclusive preview behind the velvet rope, or an open day with the whole of the the whole of the city there, they would choose the latter because they just want everyone to be involved. And they're more likely to bring other people with them. They're more likely to join, they're more likely to donate. And they're the glue that hold your audience together. For the first one, Essence, if these people aren't talking about you, then you should be worried because your art is not being taken seriously. If these people are not in your audience, then you're lacking the glue that holds your audience together. The people who had a lot of expression survived COVID far better than everyone else. Um, the affirmation really want to know why they should go, so they're constantly pressing their face to the glass, but they're not coming in because they need a lot of guarantees and a lot of reassurance. Why is this the right one to go to? What if I haven't been to this venue before? What will happen? Where is it? How will it work? We assume that people will figure it out, but they don't. We've seen a lot of things with really kind of formal things like opera and ballet. People really aspire to attend those things, but are quite scared of going because they don't know how it works and what do you do. They don't even know, where will I put my coat? And that sounds daft to us, but actually it's genuinely, what should I wear, um, and how long will it be? People think that classical music is going to be about 5 hours long. They're actually a bit disappointed when they're back out on the street at 9:30. So but they just don't understand format, and they don't understand how it'll work, and they don't understand what they need to know, and they worry that they'll be out of their depth in some way. So we need a lot of hand holding for these people. And again, video is brilliant for these because they can literally preview it. um, Stimulation want to be told that it's kind of unique and different and new and crazy and exciting and edgy and whatever. So in some ways, you're telling that group how safe it is, and you're telling this group how dangerous it is. It could be the same event, by the way. But but they're looking for things that are going to stimulate them, things that are going to things to think about, to talk about, things that are going to visually wow them, things, big ideas that you're going to collide together that they haven't thought of before. Um, and some of these other groups, this is about tradition, this is about nostalgia, this is about heritage for enrichment. Have you got any of that? You might not have it in everything you offer, but you might have it somewhere in your program, or somewhere in your events or whatever. These people are literally looking for some topic that they are fascinated by, but again, they want to speak to an expert. They want to dig deep. It's not a surface thing for them. These people are literally, why should I see this? And that's usually about endorsement. It's usually about everyone else is going to it. This is the one. This is why it will deliver. So they're not looking to take big risks. And for these people, somewhere in your program, you may have things that are where you get that you don't have to work too hard at all, and you get this, you strap yourself in and we'll entertain you. And Obviously helps if there's somebody famous in it, usually. But you will have, many of you, somewhere in your program, something for each of these groups. And it's about deciding, when you're looking at your program, who is the core segment for this? Who are the secondary segment for this? Might we be able to possibly angle it for this third segment? And if you're looking at something like social media, Expression are the only group here that actually like Facebook. So I'd make every single one of your Facebook posts optimized for expression. I wouldn't do anything else except expression posts on Facebook, and that will get you bigger traction, bigger engagement. But I would make all of your Instagram posts some combination of essence and stimulation, um, because the essence have latched onto Instagram because it's visually uh, beautiful, and the grammar is good, and stimulation like Instagram because it gives you, and if anybody is on X still, stimulation, do check it sometimes. If you're looking at things like spend, personally spent on arts and culture in the last 4 weeks, you can see why we're recommending these four. Expression at 18% higher than the average New Zealander to have done it. Stimulation 10% higher. Essence 6%. Affirmation still above. The other four are below, by the way. So if you're looking at the active audiences, these are they. And if you're looking at donors, 36% of current expression donors, which is amazing. And they give because they want to make the world a better place. This is altruism. They want to support organizations that authentically demonstrate alignment with values of community, accessibility, inclusion, diversity. So if you can turn that knob to 11, these people will give you money. They won't give you a lot of money, but they will give you money. Whereas stimulation, for example, it's only 21%, but they're giving to align with their personal brand. They want to support something unique or new or cutting edge. And you know, you need to be funny or clever to get them. I haven't got the slide for Essence here, but they would donate to something like an arts investment fund, like, you know, to, I don't know, invest in you know, new works by new up and coming playwrights or whatever. That they kind of want to be patrons of the arts. So I think it's about unlocking growth. You know, we talked a little bit at the beginning about lapsed audiences, these people who have considered going and have just decided not to, or at least have decided not to go to that thing. And when you look at the numbers, it's quite interesting. The blue on the right are the potential markets. These are whatever the and green on the left are the lapsed markets. This is how many people in New Zealand say in the green, I was going to that, but I haven't been for a while. And the blue are saying, oh, I might try that. And so there's a huge number of people here to go for. And whilst we should be aiming at the blue and getting new people to come to everything, that's great, that's missionary work. Look at how many people are in the green. Look at how many lapsed audiences there are. There's 1 million museum goers, 1.17 million theatre goers. There's, you know, it's absolutely enormous here. And so, so this is what I would say is your task is, can you reactivate some of these lapsed audiences? It's got to be much easier to get the people who were coming than it is to get brand new people who've never been. Um, but but I think it's I think what they're waiting for is something super persuasive, something that's going to really connect to them. And we know for many of them that'll mean something video and audio, and it'll mean something that tells them really clearly about the emotional impact that it's going to have and the spiritual impact it's going to have, not just the social thing and not just the intellectual describing what the event is. And so, you know, if you zoom in on that a little bit more closely, you know, and I'll just pick out three here. There's three here where there's over 1 million people who have been, but just have stopped coming recently. And you know, I know there'll be lots of you on your call on the call who don't do theatre, live music, or dance, but I'm sure there's lots of people on the call who do one or more of those three things. There's a lot of people waiting to come back, given the right signal. So I think it's about delivering these deep outcomes and communicating the fact that we are delivering these deep outcomes. 6 in 10 are seeking this kind of really, really deep outcome. And if I could say this as well, is that getting those people to come and delivering it is not just what makes them come back, but it's also what makes them join. It's also what makes them give you money. It's also what makes them go and tell other people about you. And so I think this is really what I'd say. There's this huge opportunity, and it's particularly true for diverse audiences, and it's particularly true for younger audiences, that they are yearning for this kind of experience and this kind of messaging. So very quickly to kind of sum that up, Essence here, they really understand the benefit of cultural engagement. Um, they're they're really pursuing self-actualization, this kind of peak moments they have throughout. They can, you know, they can tell you about amazing things that they've seen previously. Um, they're really seeking this kind of deeper meaning. We're not always making that very visible to them. expression are emotionally led, visually inspired, you know, but they're looking for a real personal connection, and that's personal connection with the artist, personal connection with the story, you know, sense of identity, belonging, empathy. So you need to turn the emotion up to 11 for this one. Um, Stimulation are looking for spectacle, to be wowed and amazed, but they love like big ideas, expanding their horizons, new perspectives. So you know, but you've got to make it like the most exciting thing happening, you know, because you've got to grab their attention. And for affirmation, they're looking to do something worthwhile. They want to kind of grow and learn. They'd like to go back on to work on Monday and say, "Oh, we saw this amazing exhibition, or went to this incredible, you know, theatre thing at the weekend," and they want to feel like they're expanding their repertoire and becoming more cultural. But they need so much handholding and guarantee and help in order to make those decisions. So they're looking to try things new. They're eager to try new things, but they're scared of trying new things. So so you really have to help them. And if you can get into these four mindsets and you can align this with what you're offering and the messaging you're putting out there, then I think not only can you unlock attendance, but I think you can unlock affinity, you can unlock loyalty, you can unlock membership. I think you can unlock donation as well. And I think it's all to play for because there's a huge number of people waiting and seeing and not quite return to the pattern that they're in. There's a whole lot of new people in the market who are making their own, you know, new habits. And I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table, not just in terms of attendance, but in terms of membership and donations as well. I think that the organization that wears its heart on its sleeve, that tunes into the audience, that is turns the emotional messaging up to 11. It's a little Spinal Tap joke for you there. I think they're the ones that are going to win. And when we're back here looking at the next installment of Audience Atlas, they're going to be the ones that have picked up on these trends and really run with them. Yeah, so I think I've kind of said this already. This is our challenge. People in the lower income levels, this is split into four, are the ones that are attending fewer things. And this wasn't the case 4 years ago. This is really flat. New Zealand had one of the most equitable, egalitarian access structures anywhere in the world. You're now much more likely to go if you've got money, and you're much less likely to go if you haven't. So you need to do something that is going to increase access pricing, but you also need to increase the sense of value of the tickets that you are selling by delivering those deeper messages. Yeah. So here's the thing of that 65% say increased living costs, meaning I've got less disposable income, so they're going to be more deliberate, and 27% feel that ticket prices have increased too much. So there's your squeeze. I think you can bypass that by being clever with your pricing and by being much more passionate and emotional about your messaging. Um, I think I've already said that. I'll do it anyway though. If you look at Pacific audiences, 41% of them are in the expression segment. It's amazing. That's the way to get them. And 55% of Pacific audiences have personally spent on culture. It's the highest group of all of them. But to counter that, 11% of them told us I didn't go because I didn't feel I'd fit in. So I'm telling you the two sides of this here. Huge potential in diversity and youth, but they're the most likely people not to come because they felt it was too expensive or they wouldn't fit in. I'm going to stop there, I think. Uh,
Thank you
yeah.
so much, Andrew. Brilliant. We've now come to the question and answer section of our webinar. There have been a few questions that have come up so far. I thought I'd read them out to you so that you can respond. My colleagues Helen and Richard are also online, and they'll provide written responses to some of the questions so we can answer as many as possible in this session. If there's something we can't get to within the session, then we'll try and provide a written response after the webinar. The first question that's come through, Andrew, is in regards to market reach and the drop in social media, how do large language models fit into this? That is, AI recommendations in Google Gemini or ChatGPT. At what point do we need to actively feed these channels, and how?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. I don't think we know yet. I mean, we know that it is happening. I think we haven't quite got that data. We know that a huge number of people are now using um, AI instead of Google. It's why Google doesn't allow a lot of those models to pull Google because it's their biggest competitor. I think that I think that that there'll will be more work done on this over the next 12 to 18 months, I think. But I think that's where a lot of people are getting their data from. Um, I um I think a lot of people have let their this is a wild generalization. I think a lot of people have been focusing so much on social media that we haven't put as much effort into our websites. And some of our websites are looking a bit tired and looking a bit kind of dull. And I know that some of the large language model and AI engines are are basically reading website data ahead of social media data. So they're mining all the available data that's on people's websites as the primary source, and obviously they're looking at lots of other secondary sources and reviews and all kinds of other things. But I know from just searching for some things that if the data isn't on the primary website, the large language models are less likely to find it. Now, I think this is such a volatile situation that in 6 months' time that might not be true. But I know at the moment that if you haven't got all of the information that you would like people to find readily available on a relatively high, simple to access web page, that the large language models will poll your website, find partial information, and then either provide partial information or mix it with some other information from somewhere else and potentially give, misleading information or not rank you very highly. So, with some clients I'm working with, I'm just trying to get them to make their websites a little bit more, um, uh, not just carrying listing information, but really carrying this kind of upfront information, particularly with video and imagery and audio. Um, and um, and we also know that there's still a large market looking at those online listings anyway. So I think that that's definitely one thing. But watch this space because I think that'll change.
Thank you, Andrew. The next question that's come up is, with the impact of social media deteriorating, can you provide foresight on what the fastest growing alternative is for arts marketing or converting customers?
Oddly, I think it's email. Email has dipped massively over the last 5 or 6 years, but I actually think it's going back up. Um, and and I think what's interesting is we've seen a lot of organizations um, well, some organizations have got, 90, 100% data capture, particularly if they're selling tickets to the performing arts organizations and so on. There are obviously a lot of performing arts organizations don't have that ticket capture either because they're using, a Ticket Tech or one of those kinds of organizations, or because they don't own the venue and the venue is selling tickets for them. But those organizations that are getting 90% plus ticket data capture from their audiences are all doing better. All of them are doing better than the ones that haven't. I mean, I'm sure that's not absolutely true, but if I were to plot them all on a graph, there'd be a massive correlation between the data that you hold and how well you're doing in terms of retention and growth. And we're seeing now that visual arts organizations, museums, and so on are all desperately trying to build databases because databases are the future. The way I'm seeing this is that um, this is hugely volatile. I mean, it's social media companies, it's Google, it's Facebook, it's gatekeepers, it's ChatGPT, it's all of these things. And the what's happening now is that with the advertising models, you're effectively being charged to advertise to your own audience. So I've got clients who are putting 70-80% of their marketing is going to Meta to advertise in various channels. And these are people that they've already had through the door, but have failed to capture. So we're now paying um, a rather unreliable and capricious organization that's providing hostile environments. We're trying to put our paid advertising in places that are not actually very nice to visit, in order to try and um, tell the people who we already had what's on next. That seems crazy. And so organizations that are building their own channels, building their own databases, and are able to talk directly to those databases, and not just in a one way, but inviting two-way dialogue with those audiences, are doing really a lot better. I just did one this last week. It is extremely interesting. Is 40% of visitors to a museum saying that they would like or expect the museum to send them more content after the visit. Um, the problem for this museum is they only have half of the email addresses. So there are people wanting more, wanting a relationship, wanting rich, deeper connection. And what we tend to have is patchy databases, and we're using those databases for really quite dull and quite old-fashioned communications. I'm sure some of you are doing amazing stuff. I'm not dissing you, but there's a lot more we could do. And I think that the future will be seeing things like Meta as a way to expand your audience rather than a way to reach your core audience. So oddly, it's kind of Back to the Future. If we just went back and built our own channels and made sure we were doing that really, really well, I think it's probably the biggest value you're going to get.
Thank you, Andrew. Just related to that question, we've had a question come up to ask, what do you think is the best way to collect emails for databases when events or spaces are free and don't need to be booked?
I think that uh, nearly all the people I'm working with now are putting in some kind of interception at the beginning. So even if it's a free thing, we are intercepting people and asking them if they would like to sign up. And whether you're doing that via a free ticket or or some other mechanism, that's increasingly happening. And I think people kind of expect it now. I think people expect to have to put their email address into everything that they do. Every time you go online, you have to put your email address in about 10 times. So I think people are quite used to it. Um, I've seen a lot of people using iPads. I've seen a lot of people using kiosks now. You can't order in McDonald's without using a kiosk. And I've seen lots of organizations now putting those in and inviting people on an iPad or a screen to enter their own data. That seems to be super popular. I've got one free museum that's literally just been asking people, what they've done is they realized nobody wanted to be on a mailing list, like no one. It's like going up to someone saying, "Would you like more email?" And people saying, "Not really." So what they've done is they've renamed their mailing list as membership. It's free. And the benefits of membership are you're the first to find out what's going on, i.e., you're on the mailing list. And so what they're doing is they're asking people if they're a member, and when they say no, they say it's free. Just put your details in here, and they're getting like 90% of people signing up. We did a little test for this about 6 months after they started doing this, and they're just sending it like a monthly email to them. Um, about 6 months after, we called up some people who'd signed up in the first month, and we said, "Hi, I'm ringing from this museum," and we were going to go into a whole spiel of like, "Do you remember signing up? And have you seen these emails? And do you read them?" And blah 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 blah. And we didn't even get that far because most of the people we rang said, "Oh yeah, I'm a member." And so what we realized was this idea of membership really matters to people. It's a kind of palpable sense of connection. And then what that organization is doing is it's then got a paid layer, which is called supporter, and they are busy upgrading the people from the free membership level to the supporter level, and very successfully doing that. And it's the idea of the pyramid is if the free layer is the base of the pyramid, the bigger the base, the taller the pyramid. So I think that there's lots of ways of doing that. It's also people don't mind, and you're also welcoming people in. You're asking, have you been before? Have you seen our new thing? So it's not don't think of it as trying to kind of extract information from people. It's just part of the welcome, and people are quite happy to exchange their contact information for a sense of connection and belonging.
Thank you, Andrew. We've had a question from John from Touch Compass. Tēnā koe, John. In our experience, he writes, in our experience, as we've built a disability-led arts model, our own audience data around belonging has signalled a trend that the ability to feel welcome in art spaces has less to do with marketing and communications or show content, but actually the accessibility of Aotearoa's venues. With your research, I suppose, internationally, Andrew, has the actual environmental space of the arts being presented factored into audience attitudes?
Oh, absolutely. I love Touch Compass, one of my favorite companies. So hi, John. Yeah, I think that's right, and I think particularly in New Zealand, I know from working with some of you is that you don't necessarily control the venue, and you don't necessarily control the staff, and I think that that's a really big issue. It can be the physical space, and obviously with access, that's like paramount, but it can also be the human welcome. Um, I think people um, accept that sometimes the spaces are what they are. But it's the way that people are treated, the way that they're welcomed, the amount of help that they're given, the way that they're greeted and looked after, and the kind of sense of care and love is absolutely critical. Um, Generally speaking, I think the venues have got better. You may tell me I'm wrong in some of those, but I think that I haven't I found that the human element is absolutely critical, and I know from working with some companies that are obviously hiring venues is that that's kind of out of your control. And I think that doing things to make it more in your control or putting a layer of your own people is really important. I should also say, John, is that although the sharp end of that experience is in the venue, actually, I think you lose most people before they leave home because we aren't either haven't given them the information about the venue, so they're unsure what they're going to get when they arrive, or we give them it in we put it on a web page or something, but we're unable to kind of confirm it or allow people to kind of talk to us, or for example, do we have a video on accessibility routes into a venue or level access, or how do you get to your seat, or toilet provision or other kinds of things. So I think that a lot of people don't even leave home because of the uncertainty. I think and I think something like physical access would be the a kind of very obvious version of that. But to be honest, I think even for people who don't have physical access problems, I think they also don't leave home because they're not quite sure what it'll be like. And if it's a new venue, it seems quite risky. So maybe I can sum it up like this. It's if I said to you, walk a mile in visitor shoes, um, then think about that. Think about what would it be like to be a total novice first time visitor coming to this place I've never been before, to see this thing I don't know what it is, and what support or information would I need, and what kind of services and welcome and things would I need when I got there. I think that's a really big thing. And the other thing I would say is that you can imagine that, obviously. You can also invite people, uh, and you can invite people from, with that have particular disabilities, or you could also just invite people who've never been before, or young people, to come and be, if you like, mystery visitors to your venue, and then you can just ask them what it was like. So I think you can learn a huge amount by seeing your offer through the eyes of the unfamiliar novice. And if you can fix that, then you'll do a lot better.
Sure, Andrew. A question from Nick. Just going back to your comments and advice around communications, do
Yeah.
you think ticket holder comms, e.g., direct marketing to past or present ticket holders through platforms like Event Finder, is an effective way to grow sales for other similar events?
Oh, great question. The proof is that it's not, I think. The Because usually when we remarket like that, I've just been to a Shakespeare, so I now get marketed the next Shakespeare. Um, the response rates are usually single digit. Um, if you ask audiences, well, we did that exactly, which is, did you see this thing we sent you about Shakespeare? They're more likely to say, well, I've just been to a Shakespeare. I'm not sure I want to see another one. Or I've just been to a comedy night. I just do want another one. And this idea that obviously if you've been to an opera, you're more likely to go to another opera than someone at a bus stop. But you're not necessarily want to go to something very similar very soon. Um, and I don't think there's any of us on the call who only like one art form or only like one genre within the art form. Um, but there's a kind of orthodoxy in arts marketing that basically says if someone has identified themselves as a person who goes to this art form or this genre, then they are the core market for the next one of those. And I don't think that's true. I think that people want an eclectic um, diet. They want a rich diet of different things. And the problem with using ticketing data, I mean, obviously I'm not saying don't use it, but I'm saying the problem with it is it's a very poor guide to what someone wants to see next. It might be a good guide to what they're going to see in the next 5 years, but it's not what they necessarily want to book next. And what I'd say is that a far better guide to what they're open to see next would be their culture segment. Because if I'm in the stimulation segment, and I've just seen your Shakespeare, and it was like a modern take, and it was kind of, political, and it was interesting, then I'm much more likely to go and see something completely different, but which has elements which stimulation would like because it's about a big idea or it's visually stunning or it's whatever. And it could be a totally different genre, but you're much more likely to understand that I am interested in that because I'm stimulation than you are saying, oh, he really likes Shakespeare set in the future. Let's do another one of those. So I think it's uh, if you categorize your entire program by its by each thing's level of appeal to culture segments, then target those culture segments, either because you know who's in each culture segment, or even just by writing the copy and the imagery and whatever to appeal to those culture segments, you will sell more tickets than you will if you just say, does someone have a recent track record of attending something very similar?
Thanks so much, Andrew. The last question in our last 5 minutes is just about donor conversion. So the question is, in your experience, Andrew, is donor conversion primarily driven by marketing, led by development, or should it sit as a whole of organisation responsibility? And if it's shared, what practical structures or systems actually make that collaboration work in reality, not just in theory?
Oh, wow. Okay. well, I'm going to say whole of organization, but I think it's understanding why people want to give, and particularly at new and lower levels of philanthropy. Um, it's a sense of belonging and connection that people are looking for. And so rather than it being a kind of a comms thing, like, here's the form, sign up, I think it's about richness. So what can you tell people? What can you offer them? What can you give them? What can you invite them to that is going to make them feel good about giving? And I think that's got to be as much about programming as it is about communications. And I was saying before, like Essence want to really get closer to the art, closer to the kind of source of creativity. Expression want to feel that they're supporting inclusivity. So again, it's coming up with opportunities to give that uh, very few people want to pay your electricity bill. Um, People would like to feel that they're helping, underprivileged children attend, or they'd like to feel that they're supporting young musicians, or they'd like to feel that they're somehow playing a role that's really valuable in the way that the art meets society. Very, very few people are enlightened enough to say, I'll just give you the money for your electricity bill and then I'll leave the rest to you. Some of your bigger donors might do that because they understand the value of having you as an organization existing. But people getting into philanthropy want to feel like their modest amount of money has made some real difference in the world. And so it's about the art and it's about society. And if you can package something that makes people feel that they are giving money to make art make a difference in society, then they will 10 times more likely to give you the money than if you just say, we're a good cause, give us money. And I think to get those opportunities and to fashion them and to follow through, you do need everyone in the organization to be thinking like that.
Sorry, Andrew, we just have one more question while you're here with us. It's a very good one. Do you think traditional art forms are harder to enter now because audiences don't share the same reference points anymore, so the work can feel hard to read? Have you seen organisations do this well and genuinely reach new audiences with older forms?
Oh, wow. Okay. Uh, I think that's interesting, as cultural references move on. Um, oh, that's a great question. Um, what I would say is that if you're thinking about, opera, ballet, and more classical forms of theatre, but opera and ballet particularly, I've done a lot of work on very recently. The audience for opera is now bigger than it's ever been, ever. Um, but it's mainly a potential audience. So there are people who see it as incredibly aspirational. I don't think that people necessarily have many of the reference points, other than Nessun Dorma. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's the entire idea of the experience and the spectacle and the occasion. And we're often marketing opera and ballet by repertoire. And what we're finding is that for newer audiences, if it's something they've vaguely heard of, it helps. But and it's quite good to probably give them a synopsis of what it's about. But that's not why they're coming. They're coming to see for the wow factor. They're coming for the occasion. They want to get dressed up. They want to do the thing. It's so the kind of that we might see it as traditional or formal or classical. They're seeing it as grand, and grand is good. So I think we should probably worry less about kind of contemporary cultural relevance and more about marketing the experience rather than necessarily marketing the exact, libretto. Um, there was a disastrous campaign in the UK for opera, which uh, wasted an enormous amount of money. An advertising agency was employed to produce a campaign to get young people to go to opera, and it would look like a Levi 501's advert, and the strapline was, "What are you wearing to the opera tonight?" And it's sold no tickets. I mean, like 12 or something. And the when we did the analysis of why it didn't work, young people said it's really disappointing because I thought the whole point of opera was getting dressed up, and we were looking forward to like a really, like, it's like going to the prom or something, they were really looking forward to an exciting night, and to be told that opera is really ordinary and every day and you can just fall out of the pub and go kind of takes all of the point of going away. This idea of trying to demystify it was literally the opposite of what people wanted. People wanted the grandeur of it. So I think that I think you're probably right, is that people are less familiar with the source material, but they are absolutely in awe of the potential of the experience.
Anei te mihi, Andrew. Thank you so much for your insights and your presentation to us all today. Really appreciate it. We've covered a lot of ground in the session, exploring the insights from Audience Atlas Aotearoa 2025 and what they mean for our arts and Ngāti Māori sector. Again, a big thank you to you, Andrew, for sharing your expertise.
Can,
Summary.
can I just add one more thing quickly? You
Yes,
may
of
have
course.
see it on the screen, but uh, there's a QR code and an URL on the screen here. We are really happy to give to do literally a free, no obligation consultation with anyone who's on the call. So if you would like to learn more or data we hold about your organization, or you would like us to maybe talk to your colleagues, we could set up a half-hour session or whatever. That offer is good for everyone, by the way. So if you follow this QR code, there's a little Google form, and you can just register, and we'll be really happy to set up a call. And that could just be with you, or it could be with colleagues, or anything you want. We'll do as many of those as people want. And if you have more questions that we haven't got the answers to here, and you can't find them in the downloadable reports, we will go back into the data and find the answers for you. That's I'd just like to make that as an offer. Sorry to have interrupted you.
Not at all. Thank you very much. It's a very generous offer. As you can see on the slides, you can access a copy of all the reports, Audience Atlas Aotearoa 2025, and a recording of today's webinar on Creative New Zealand's website at www.creativenz.govt.nz. We'll send you a link so you can revisit the presentation or share it with colleagues who couldn't attend. We'll try and provide responses to any questions that we missed or haven't been able to answer today with the recording. If you've got additional questions or want to explore the data further, please get in touch with Andrew at MHM, or you can email us at Creative New Zealand, so research@creativenz.govt.nz. Finally, ka nui te mihi kia koutou katoa. Thank you again for your participation and for your mahi whakahirahira in the arts, culture, creativity and Ngāti Māori. I'll close this with karakia. Kia tau na manaakitanga a te mea ngaro ki runga ki tēnā o tātou. Kia mahia te hua makihikihi, kia toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori. Kia tūturu kia whakamaua kia tīna, tīna, hui e, tae ki. Mauri ora, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you.